This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Kabata, and he joins us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How are you doing?
Very well. Very
Good,
well.
you
I'm
say.
happy. I'm healthy.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
And busy.
Challenges of wealth, but I'm healthy.
I've never heard it put that way.
We run for wealth so much, but our main resource is health.
It's health, yeah.
You know, sometimes you're even you're a sickness away from poverty.
Yes,
So it's something to take into
It's a
consideration.
reality, man.
Correct.
It's a reality.
Correct.
for sure. We're looking at leadership and the rule of law in politically sensitive times. But I guess beyond the politics of the day, but just across board, really. We're going to get into that conversation. Dennis wants to share a proverb today. He'll tell you where it's from. We have your interpretation.
We are from Benin, a land that is rich in cotton, the largest producers of cotton in the continent, right? And also in the 17th and 19th century, that has been my line, right? So they had a military that was predominantly women at the time, and they were in charge of protecting the kingdom at the time. So let's go to the proverb. The elder sees sitting down what the young person cannot see standing up.
Correct.
How would you interpret it?
Let me get this off my chest. I have been to Benin, specifically the two towns of Cotonou and Porto Novo.
Porto Novo.
A beautiful country with a very rich history in an African-based monarchy, but as well as a rich history in what we may define as the poorest cases of slavery and slave trade.
Yes, yes.
It surpasses what happened in the grim tunnels of Gorée and West Coast in presently Sierra Leone. But besides that, and in fact, I was going to give you an analogy of why that proverb is set in that way, and specifically from that region.
Yeah.
If you realize the history of the slave trade in Benin, particularly, it was very gruesome. Women were tied to a neck brace with their young children, and it automatically meant that if the lady failed to move on, what the metal strap will do is it will snap the neck of the child. And the journey towards the coast of embarkation point in now what is presently called Quida has a rich yet sad tale of what happened in the slave trade in that region. Because as they were going towards the ships, they were tasked to wave back as they bid farewell to their home. What an elder can see while seated, but a young person cannot see while standing, is an experience of time. If you want to learn to move fast in time, bewail the character of those who came fast before you so that you don't make their mistakes. The experience of seeing what you're seated simply means that the context of experience furthers the knowledge of a human being. Time equates a resource of knowledge. And so what a person who has lived long enough can tell you or can share with you is something that probably in the next lifetime you may not be able to share. That summarizes it for me.
True. Well said.
And summarizes it beautifully.
Beautifully, yeah.
Have you written any books?
No, I have not. Not yet.
Okay.
But I'm thinking about it. Once I'm done with my tenure at the Law Society of Kenya, I'm thinking of taking some short sojourn to reflect, probably in the Mediterranean. It opens your eyes. It opens your eyes.
It does. I am an advocate for more Africans writing more and putting in the things that we know into books. A big advocate of that. And even as we speak about it this morning, we're looking at leadership and the rule of law. That what responsibility leadership has to entrenching and or plus practicing the rule of law in Kenya today. And that there, unfortunately, and indeed, Kenya, the region, the continent, because our conversations go from Kenya to the continent, whereby we're dealing in a time when Africa, again, is the girl in the corner who's being wooed over and over again. and that maybe things will not be taken so forcefully as the woman whose metal is tied around the neck of her child,
Correct.
but that it is now in a more subtle way, but the intention is still real.
Correct.
And so when we look at the things that we do
Correct.
from government to government for people, then the rule of law, which we've accepted, nobody forced down our throats, is something that we should then practice. I would like to get an overview, first of all, from you. Looking at Kenya and how it operates, is the rule of law followed to a large extent? And is it enough to say that by and large, the rule of law is followed, so the little that, makes it through the cracks is not important?
We do not suffer from constitutional deficit in Kenya. We suffer from compliance deficit. I start with that, Ryder, because we are living in interesting times. We are living in times when court orders are not followed, they are not adhered to. We are living in times when the crash of government is at an all-time high. We are living in times when the vice chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission, a commission that is constitutionally mandated to regulate the affairs of judges and recruit and appoint judicial officers, the vice chair is actively engaging in the political affairs of one of the leading political parties in Kenya.
Yep.
We are living in times when funds that are supposed to be directed towards the national health infrastructure are being divested into infrastructure, road infrastructure. We are living in interesting times where members of parliament are failing to comply by constitutional edicts over two-thirds, not more than two-thirds majority from one gender. It's the stories cannot end in one simple radio show. What I'm trying to say is we are not suffering from a moment where the constitution cannot explain its core function. We are living in a time when the constitution is yelling, this is what I expect of you, and then the leadership structure is saying we will not comply. That's my take for now. And if the opposite is not, the constitution did not introduce the rule of law. The rule of law is a concept that originated in very mediocre and very primordial communities and villages and societies, because its alternative is the rule of man. And the rule of man is unpredictable. It is set by standards that are do not have integrity. They are set in standards that are unpredictable. They are set in standards that benefit a few select private individuals in society. And so the rule of law as a cardinal constitutional principle is one that expects a formality of compliance with the law because it is predictable. The law is predictable at that set. It says, if I struck you in your face, definitely a reaction will follow that has been accepted by society, which means something will happen to me in a punishment mode. I will have to atone to what I have done. But then contrary to that is we see public resources being plundered. We are witnessing a moment where we are having an all-time high in flagrant violation, not only of constitutional edicts, but of legal edicts, that we have a set of rules that are intended to pursue a specific action, but they are not being complied with, and we expect to get a different result from that. I think that's the highest sense of stupidity.
You talk about intention, and you look at the law, and like you've said, Kenya, we do not lack laws.
Yes.
All we lack is willingness.
Yes.
To uphold the law.
Yes.
And you look at those who have been given the responsibility. Everybody has the responsibility of upholding the law.
Yes.
But you look at those with primary or more responsibility in ensuring that these things are adhered to. And one says it's as if there's an order to just not follow the law, to break the law at any given opportunity. And one asks the question, then how do we operate and fix these nuts and bolts, despite the fact that those in leadership do not want to follow the law? Like the order that was given by the Supreme Court over two-thirds gender rule, Parliament to be dissolved and people to go back and ensure. That was never followed. Correct. And many other court orders that were given into place. So then as wananchi, who are the sole protectors of the law because we gave this constitution to ourselves, what do we do?
The constitution has a reset button. It's silent, but it is a reset button. It was almost pressed in 2024 in June, July.
Yeah.
When Kenyans themselves took it upon themselves to take back their mandate. And that mandate is a constitutional process. And the constitution envisages that it will not be a peaceful process. And that process, it has two avenues. It has an avenue of voluntary submission of delegated authority, but then it also has a moment where it talks about it says the supremacy of the people. That supremacy is not defined. It is only defined in moments of crisis. We are heading into an election in Kenya, and I call it a moment of crisis because we must talk about electoral preparedness. We must talk about institutional independence in the judiciary. We must talk about independence of the legislature. And we must talk about independent institutions and their core functions. If we don't talk about this, then we are heading into a moment where there will be political as well as legal compromise. The beauty about it is that I believe in my own way that the Kenyan public is now sensitized in terms of what they expect of government. We may not be at 100%, but we are at a better place than where we are coming from.
Okay.
I am not here to preach doom and gloom. The Law Society itself as a statutory body and a position that has been taken to be a defender of good governance, rule of law, and a key pillar in constitutional democracy. We'll want to champion a roadmap, for instance, in how our electoral preparedness is evaluated. Where are we? How many days are we left with? We have seen it happen in Tanzania. Uganda borrowed it. We are known for borrowing other things. We will definitely borrow the lessons that we took from Uganda and Tanzania. And that is the moment where the rule of law is actually tested. Will the courts speak out loudly? Will the legislature defend the mandate that it has been given by its electorate? Or will the Kenyan people decide once and for all that enough is enough? And so we may not put a lot of hope in the executive arm of government because for one reason or the other, they have been a key player in plundering and defiling the constitutional order that we have. But at least we may remain, if not with the legislature, because a majority of them probably don't reason. But the judicial arm of government is one anchor that we must continue to defend. We must continue to talk about its independence. But even when they have an overreach, we must also put a critic of that function and put them to bring them back to book because no one is beyond reproach, not even Lady Justice herself. Yes.
So I read an interesting line about the nose the other day, and that it is that your nose is always in your field of vision, but your brain edits it out. So it's there. Now, when you focus on it, you will see your nose. But because it's always there, your brain now kind of says, okay, well, you know it's there, so you don't need to see it all the time. And that when you think about that, you think that what has become familiar has now become invisible. Have we gotten to the point where certain things that now it's almost like it's an appendage? It is there. Ignorance of the rule of law, refusal to deal with issues, matter of corruption, because it baffles me that there are committees that sit every day, that talk about the things that ill a society. But it's so familiar, like the nose is on the face.
Correct.
And so we deal with the issue in a meeting, but then that's about the size of it. And then everybody goes home, and then we come back in the morning, and then we go on to the next issue. If the person is indicted and or arrested, okay. If they're not, on to the next. And it has become systemic to the point whereby we're not really dealing with the issues. We're talking about them, but we're not dealing with them. People ignore court orders. Men are disappeared for 3 months.
Correct.
The court has asked somebody who is in a position of leadership to show up 7 times. And he shows up on the day that the individuals are returned.
Correct.
And then we say we can't do 1 + 1.
Correct.
October 31st marked another day where Chacha Mwita judge asked again that the DCI boss show up in court. And I said it, he will not come. And true to form, he didn't come. Nose on the face, Kabata. Nose on the face. The brain has edited it out. We do not even think about it anymore. That there's not an observance of it. Have we gotten to the point where it's that bad? Have we edited out these things which matter, but we'll deal with them on the face of it, but will not go down into the detail?
I think when you put it that way, a rather beautiful parallel is, when you put a frog in cold water and then you heat the water, the frog will die not knowing that the water is getting
boiling
hot.
to death.
But if you put a frog in hot water, definitely it will jump out. I promise you. We are living in a moment that our environment has become so convenient, and we have become so complacent in accepting the environment that we are living in. Probably if we were put in hot water, we will all jump out. But it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all doom and gloom. In a constitutional order that lives on the pillars of good governance, rule of law, and democracy, one time it will be possible, even as you have left public service, to pay and be brought to book for what you did. Because the Constitution does not envisage its own plunder without redress. So one time, Matiang'i will come back. Director of the DCI will come back. At least Masengeli purged himself of the contempt. We will have judges who will be bold, brave, boundless, as well as stern enough to say, you will not get away with it. You are living on the mandate of the public. You are not living on the mandate of private affairs. You are acting in the interest of the public. And even though there is constitutional defiance, the Constitution must fight back and must have persons who are addressing that fight back. And a key pillar of that group of people is lawyers. The late Feroz Noriji, God rest his soul, reminded us that the office of an advocate is not a private office. It is a constitutional office because it is anchored in the Constitution. On moments when former retired Amos Wako, now Senator, Senior Counsel, was summoned to State House and told lawyers are being very stubborn and recalcitrant, and we need to do away with them. What do? Just go and repeal the Advocates Act. And that was a directive by the head of state. Take it to Parliament, repeal the Advocates Act, do away with this problem. It's a straightforward home run. But the reaction that Senior Counsel gave, and it's a lesson that we must always remember, is that if you do away with the body of lawyers by repealing the Advocates Act and the Law Society of Kenya Act, what you have done is you have removed all judicial officers from being advocates, and one of the main criteria for being a judge or a magistrate is you have to be an advocate. And it baffled the head of state because he said, I think this is the very reason why I employed you, because you think. I don't know whether you get that parallel. That we have a constitutional order that has to live not for a few select, but from a majority of those who aspire for constitutional norms that are progressive, that are democratic, that enhance the rule of law and constitutionalism. And the fact that the Constitution in itself envisages that power will be autocratic, it puts checks and limits. It limits power. It says you can do this to this level. Then after that, it picks a different body to say that now from this, you will now check them. So the Constitution is full of its own internal safeguard. I reminded you that it even has a reset button. That it's silent if it feels there is self-implosion or a Machiavellian moment to self-detonate. It protects itself. So it brings itself to order and says, no, we have to stop this. This is the right way to take it. That is where, as Kenyans, we are supposed to lead and insist on leadership that talks about constitutional progress, not constitutional defiance and defilement.
So you mentioned something that is very critical in the sense that the Constitution itself will check itself, right?
Correct.
And here we have everybody who exists in this country being protected and being guided by the very same constitution. Now, enter the leadership of the country, right? And one asks the question, if the constitution needs its full implementation, why not implement it? And you've also spoken in terms of the supremacy of the people and the power that they have given the constitution to be the document that rules, right? So why isn't their intention for this constitution to be implemented as envisioned by the document? Is it because once the supremacy of the people overrides everything, then those in leadership have nowhere else to go?
The supremacy of the Constitution is a constitutional principle that confers absolute power on the people. There was a case when, and I will not mention names, that a group of Kenyans sitting in a county setup decided to vote for representation at a very high devolution level, a person who had been convicted by a court of law,
yes,
sentenced in accordance with the law, set aside because he was found unfit to sit in reasonable, normal communities. He then escaped from that justice cycle and changed his name and came to the ballot, and Kenyans in that particular devolved sector said, yes, this is our guy. This is our guy. Supremacy of the people. So while the Constitution allows the exercise of free suffrage expression and to be expressed by the people, it also sees the danger that may be posed by those people, and it puts an infrastructure to challenge that authority. I don't know whether you're seeing where I'm going.
Yes.
So I'm giving you two parallels. I'm showing you one aspect where supremacy of the people may be applied in not what the Constitution prescribed, but the Constitution sees further and puts mechanisms to challenge that wrongful expression of supremacy of the people.
That which is what?
Yes.
Which is which is there is a way to challenge that authority. You can challenge it when it is exercised in a wrong way, because the Constitution has seen a perfect model of how it will be exercised in a free and fair, with integrity, good governance, national values of leadership and governance, which include patriotism, adherence to the rule of law. What is adherence to the rule of law? You must comply with court orders. You must serve your time.
Which means then, in upholding the correction measures that the Constitution has in its own self, right? It means there is an authority that has been given the powers to assist.
Absolutely,
in implementing
absolutely,
that, right?
absolutely.
Which then brings me to the next conversation on political goodwill and the officers that we do have and their willingness to ensure that this Constitution does work. Because then here we have an individual who's supposed to serve time,
correct,
change their name,
correct,
come back. But we have agencies as well who the Constitution have told you can stop this from happening, which then asks the question, do we have political goodwill in the implementation of the document?
We are looking at a moment where the headline of the Standard newspaper is saying, shaming the judiciary, and I like the fact that the Vice Chair, Mr. Isaac Ruto, has one eye closed because the judiciary is supposed to be blind, especially to politics. And I know that when he was appointed as the Vice Chair of the when he was appointed as the Vice Chair, the clearance letter from the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties notes, and the letter is dated the 22nd of May 2023, that according to the records held by this office as at 22nd of May 2023, Honorable Isaac Kipruto Arap Ruto of ID 14526 is not an official nor a member of any registered political party in Kenya. Yours faithfully, Anne Nderitu CBS, Registrar of Political Parties, CEO.
This was 2020 what now?
This letter was on the 22nd of May 2023.
Okay.
It's a clearance letter that was supposed to be delivered to the Judicial Service Commission.
Okay.
So the official position is that he's not a member of any political parties.
And that came from the registrar.
And that came from the registrar of political parties. We are living in a moment where if you are buying land in Kenya and you went to the registrar of lands, I've told you an example of the registrar of political parties, and you went to the registrar of lands and you said, could you give me an official clearance search for this particular property so that I can be confident that it is clear of encumbrances? And the court and the registrar gave you a search, and you used that search as a precondition to purchase the land. The court is now telling us that that document is not conclusive proof of ownership, and that you have to go back and perform other incidental searches. For instance, ask a village drunkard who would give you a better record of the history of that property other than what the registrar of lands will give you. We are moving into areas where searches of names of persons, searches of names of companies are not foolproof. We are moving to areas where we cannot trust public offices to entrust us with information that can enable us to make commercial or societal decisions. And it should scare you, because then what is the function of these public entities that have been entrusted with this responsibility? I give you an example. The government, as a personified unity, operates more like a company. It operates with a transfer of shares. It operates with change of directors, which is now leadership structures. And if it will not be possible to have trust in the processes that are offered by these public entities, then we are good as not having them in the first place and living with each other in the brutal way that animals live in the wild. So when we have institutions that work, the EACC, the Kenya Prison Services, when you have institutions that are entrusted with this public mandate, weren't we here the other day when a cabinet secretary refused summons by a committee of the National Assembly, a powerful committee of the National Assembly? Then where does it put us? Does it say that the committee of the National Assembly does not have this power, or rather it is compromised? My answer is in the latter. It has the power, but it is compromised. Because a cabinet secretary represents the executive function of government, and they are subservient to what we've discussed about supremacy of the people and how power, constituent power, is exercised. It is exercised through their elected representatives. And it is not rocket science that Parliament has power to summon any person, including the President of the Republic of Kenya. So I'm not saying a mere cabinet, I'm saying a cabinet secretary will then be someone who will be easy to attend to a preliminary hearing that affects one function of, say, in this particular case, health. And so when, in fact, he did not refuse to come, he came, but under his own terms. He formed his own questions and answered them. He read the Riots Act to these members of the Committee of Parliament. To me, that was a show in defiance of constitutional power, the supremacy of the people, and it gives reference to what you are saying. Are these authorities, are these bodies, are these committees that represent the people disempowered, or are they compromised?
And so I find myself sometimes unsure of what people ought to do. It was very clear what people did before, when there was a clear defiance to the way in which things were happening. And that's where we have the famous quotes that government is done in boardrooms, but revolution, change, happens in the streets.
Correct.
Right? And what we saw 50, 60, 100 years ago to a lot of the current jurisdictions that exist in the world that we often make reference to is that very thing, that they were in the streets. It was bloody, it was terrible. Correct. To get them to the place whereby they said, this is the bare minimum. We set up systems that no matter what, you would be afraid and foolhardy to step out of this system of operation, because that is what had been set up. So what gets people to the place where you say the people have to exercise, have to practice the power that they hold, given to them by the Constitution, when you see certain things going wrong over and over again? You see a lot of these corruption reports that we're seeing this week, they're looking at the books of 2023, 2024. It's not even current.
Correct.
The Senate committee is looking at the books of the financial year 2 years ago. These are things that happened 2 years ago.
Correct.
They're not current.
Correct.
So even that, they will put their recommendations and they are collecting dust in files somewhere.
Correct.
So what are people supposed to do? I mean, it sounds so rudimentary, Kabata, but what do people do?
You made an example with the nose. Let me return you to that, because probably it will make sense this way. When the nose becomes too big, the mind has to see it. The nose is structured in a way that goes down so that probably you can focus more to the front and to the side. But when that baggage becomes too heavy to bear, when we have a crisis and we are heading there, in services that are offered to members of the public, health services, infrastructural services, civic services, the back will not hold. It will have to snap. At that moment is when Kenyans will take it back upon themselves to define the kind of leadership that they so require. Revolutions take two ways. They are civil revolutions and bloody revolutions. Most of the times, the latter usually prevails. In our instant case, the cost of living is too high. Compliance with rule of law is at an all-time low. We are living in times when private universities, public universities are suffering from a financial deficit. We are suffering from moments where public officers are going without pay. We are suffering from a moment where teachers are on strike. Medical health officers are not attending to their duties because they are not being paid. We are looking at instances where the Kenya National Police, or rather the National Police Service, picks an individual from their home, translocates them to a county 500 kilometers away, and they end up dead. And to date, nothing particularly of interest in terms of rule of law has been undertaken. We are looking at an incident where a police officer, in fact, 2 days ago is it 4 days ago in Karatina? Is it Karatina or Nyeri?
It was Karatina.
Someone, a police officer, shoots an unarmed civilian. It is important to underscore unarmed, meaning that they pose no danger except for verbal or oral. I don't know whether you're getting it.
Yep.
And they kill them on the spot, and what happens is they are just presented to court. It brings the interesting conversation upon what is happening to our country. What I am telling you today, is we will get to a moment where Kenyans will say, no, enough is enough. We voted overwhelmingly for a constitutional order in 2010. It was not a simple majority. It was not a simple majority. It was an overwhelming majority, meaning many and a majority of those who live in this country resonate with the edicts of the Constitution. And that if they are not complied with, that nose will bulge out, become too big that the eyes will be able to see it again, and they will say, no, enough is enough.
Kabata, would you say that even as we talk about institutions breaking the law, the leadership, flouting court orders, that Kenyans as well are part of the problem. One would ask it in twofold. Are Kenyans part of the problem as to where the country finds itself today? Because you talk about the corruption that happens, Kenyans play part in that corruption as well. You talk about Kenyans showing up in gatherings, where clearly public funds are being misused and where they're clapping. But then again, on the other side, knowing exactly what is happening in the country, are Kenyans part of the solution? Only that perhaps because the ruling class has understood the psyche, has understood how to play around with all this, they've taken advantage of that Kenyans have forgotten the power they have in making things right.
A majority of Kenyans actually walk on what they want. They simply want good governance. They want good roads. They want public healthcare facilities where they can get affordable and access to medical health. And I have seen moments where members of the Kenyan public have publicly heckled against including the President of the Republic of Kenya. That kind of heckling is not disrespect. I've heard it in quarters that it is disrespect to the office of the President. It is not. It is dissatisfaction with the promises. We were promised wheelbarrows. We are now going to Singapore.
Yeah.
That is a core function that the Kenyan majority has taken to heart and is saying, and you will see it in the next plebiscite that we'll have in 2027, that Kenyans are no longer in the business of promises. They're in the business of progress. What are we doing? Yes. Where are we? How much are we supposed to pay for these government services? It is too high. Our education system, is it working? Is SHA working? Is the national housing infrastructure working? We are moving into an era where Kenyans will be more convinced with accountability and transparency. It is not doom and gloom. There are a few members of the Kenyan public who, for a small token, would put their minds on the side. But a majority of Kenyans, in fact, expect leadership that is transparent, leadership that is progressive, leadership that is accountable. And so every time I have seen many rallies where cabinet secretaries are, or rather devolved leadership is, and Kenyans put them to task. Young Kenyans talk truth to power. They say, you promised us this. This is what you did. You asked us money to enable us to travel overseas for studies, and you have not done so. And that expression on its own is the power that keeps on to remind us that we still have hope. We still have hope for a Kenya that works for Kenyans, a Kenyan that does not defile what we call constitutional order, a Kenya that talks about its people, for its people, and of its people. So it is not lost. In fact, I give you the hope and courage to always reflect that Kenya will be saved by younger people. The young people are not ethnic. They are not driven by financial greed and primitive accumulation. They are not driven by gender stereotypes. They are not driven by luxuries of city living. They are not driven by substance abuse. They are more focused. They are focused on healthy competition. They are focused on innovation. They are focused on progressive realization of human rights. They are focused on a society that speaks about mental health. They are focused about, yes, they are talking about it on social media, and their tool, their most powerful tool in their time has always been social media. It will change the way we are looking at things. They are not interested in family members who abrogate public office and plunder public resources. They call it out. They are interested in earning decently, in developing communities that are sustainable in a collective, not seclusive, in a collective fashion where systems work, public offices work. If I will rely on a public office report, it must be authentic and credible. If I was to purchase a car, I must believe that when I conduct the search at the NTSA portal, that it is conclusive, that there is no one else out there who has a different logbook for that particular property it applies across the board on land as property, on subleases, on God knows certificates of marriage. If you wanted to marry and you are applying for a certificate of marriage, you are misled to believe that someone is a spinster or a bachelor when they are not. These are the conversations that society must have to bring back the trust that has always been in public office. And so as we move forward, we must insist that corruption in itself kills economies.
True.
Because it transfers functions to private hands and benefits to private hands. In fact, reducing the confidence and compliance on part of those who mean well. And so when you issue a search or a title that is fraudulent, you are not only killing the purchaser, you are killing a whole food chain that goes across depending on that purchaser or that buyer. So it's a conversation that we must have openly, and we must admit where there are shortfalls, but there is a lot that can be done to regain the space of public confidence, specifically on matters of leadership and rule of law.
I'm of the thought that we don't need a system overhaul because, like you said, the Constitution has placed these systems there. It's with an overwhelming, majority that this is the way we should go. A lot of these systems have then been put in. Are we too far-fetched to think that what is required is a values mindset reboot?
Yes. Yes. We must return an Article 10 perspective of what our value system as a country is. We must be able to teach children that a car is a mode and a vessel of transport to take you from point A to point B. It's not a point of prestige. We must confer it upon our younger citizens so that there will be the change, that primitive accumulation of public resources is not only abhorred, it is completely inhuman. That you will take resource that was supposed to give a service to a pregnant mother in Kwale and transfer it to an apartment in Dubai. That it doesn't work, that it is wrong. You must be able to teach children that throwing a banana peeling on the road is bad. Because they don't do it in the house. You tell them in the house, pick it up, drop it in the rubbish bin. You don't pick it up for them. You tell them, pick it up. Because that's the value you instill in a micro society in your house. So when you come to a macro society, in our bigger society, they must be able to translocate these values to each other. That it is as simple as saying, I am sorry. It is as simple as saying, do not overlap on traffic. It is very simplistic, by the way. It seems complicated, but it is simple. Rwanda does it. In fact, motorcycles, not alone cars, motorcycles do not overlap. You see how it's the nose. You see how it's so common. In fact, we actually think motorcycles don't overlap. But they overlap because we don't look at them as motor vehicles. We look at them as cyclists. So it's a community that must demand that these ethical values are instilled at a young age and insisted even in our present value system, so that you don't look at the funds that have been allocated to the health as something that you can plunder with your colleagues. No, you look at it with the beneficial consequence that it will go to helping a needy, sickly member of community. That is the only way it will work. And I'm happy, Ndu, that you've actually jogged my mind into that direction.
And even as we get into changing how we look at things and what it is we do, the culture change that is needed in the country, this has to be done in a structured manner, right? It has to follow some rules and how the game is played. What do I say? we need to have institutions that will ensure the rule of law is followed. That when the government excesses are there or when the law is being broken, someone has to stand up. LSK has done that, you know. We've seen LSK standing up for Kenyans and saying, Agai, we will come to court, we will represent you, we will put government to task. And as we look into the change in leadership at LSK, one would want to know, okay, fine, this is where we are. We've seen the great job that has been done. But how do we scale that even further so that as LSK pushes, we carry Kenyans as well together?
The LSK has played a pivotal mandate pivotal role in what you're saying. And it has all come because of the support that we have from our membership. I know many advocates came from across the country. We formed social media platforms where we were pinpointing areas, hot areas where constitutional violations were being perpetrated. And there was response overwhelmingly, especially from our younger members of the bar. And they will go to these police stations, they will go to these courts, they will speak about the constitutional violations that were happening at that time. The judiciary was at least helpful because it even extended the time that I know of courts that went further to midnight. I know of courts that dealt with these issues on a Saturday. I remember there is a particular court that sat on a Saturday to address the question of bail and bond. And so, interestingly, we find ourselves again on a roadmap where we are heading into the 2027 elections in Kenya, and the Law Society will be extremely pivotal in that electoral process. But that does not mean that constitutional violations end at that point. And so, a leadership that has already proven itself, a leadership that is progress, that has always been speaking about upholding of the Constitution, rule of law and good governance, a person who has spoken about abductions, a person who has spoken about the extrajudicial killings that were happening in Yala, a person who has spoken about constitutional violations in legislative reform, when the finance bill was being passed and the challenges that we took to court. We have, these are not promises that we are saying. That's my cardinal call. I'm saying it's a record of progress. What we have been doing, and this, to sustain that progress, we need the continuity, the progressive leadership that has been at the Law Society of Kenya. Even when our own members are arrested, and they are arrested, we go out there, we go to court. We have a moratorium with the National Police Service that advocates cannot be arrested without the due notice of the Law Society of Kenya, because an advocate is an actor of justice. You may be arresting an advocate to subvert justice. So first of all, inform an advocate, inform the Law Society of Kenya, and we speak for our own members because we believe that in many instances, the prosecution, the arrest of members of the Law Society of Kenya is not done above board. There is usually undertones happening. When Dunstan Omari, who is my teacher, was defending the then cabinet secretary Matiang'i, and then later on he was arrested just by defending someone. It is not illegal to represent someone. In fact, even the Constitution in its own vision sees that there is even a greater call to defend those who are indefensible, those that are seen not likely to be defended. I don't know whether you're getting the emphasis.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting you say that, and yet there is a lawyer today who is going through the rigors of all of that by virtue of the fact that he represented individuals who are accused of terrorism.
In fact, that question is, and we went to the defense of Chacha Mwita, and we are going to defend him to the hilt. The question is, he receives money on his mobile phone on a platform that is run by one of the largest giants of telecom money transfer in Kenya, and I know you know who. That is operated from a biggest financial institution in Kenya, that is I&M, and he receives it in his mobile phone that is officially registered in Kenya, how many criminals do you see? I see two. I see the bank and the giant telecos.
Yeah.
He did not receive it from a private arrangement. He received it in a public arrangement.
Yeah.
And so he says it was in furtherance of receiving legal fees.
Yeah.
And so an advocate's right to earn a living cannot be fettered by structural bottlenecks like anti-money laundering or terrorism financing, because he is representing a client. He is not representing a terrorist. I don't know whether I am again making sense. And when we get pronouncements from courts of law that advocates cannot offer services to public entities, or other public entities cannot procure legal services from private or external legal services, it baffles us, because aren't engineers doing it? Aren't doctors doing it? Aren't accountants doing it, offering services to public entities?
Sure.
Aren't teachers doing it? Aren't sometimes journalists consulted to offer services, media services to public entities on advocacy, on outreach? In fact, on advertisement. I don't know, I had forgotten that. Government is the largest consumer of media services on advertisement. So why single out one profession? Why single out one profession that is offering stellar legal services? And what we forget is, many times these public entities are saved a lot of money from legal representation, so that they don't pay those decrees. They are saved from paying unnecessary legal costs by legal representation. The question is, why is there a clarion call from the government to kill all lawyers? Let's kill all lawyers.
That's how far we're taking it.
Let's kill all lawyers, because lawyers are the only people who will speak for the society when the government errs. Only lawyers will stand and say, no, enough is enough.
Yeah.
Lawyers are pivotal in society because they usually do not speak from partisanship, they do not speak from ethnic, they do not speak from religious extremism. They speak from a background that is logically premised in law and particularly opened up towards constitutional protection, rule of law, and good governance. So next time they tell you kill all lawyers, look at them in the eye and say no, thank you.
And say no. Well, Rakabata is the vice president of the LSK. He wants to be the president of the LSK. And looking into how you can have a continuance of the things that you have been doing for the last 2 years. We wish you all the best. We want to thank you for opening our eyes to some of these conversations today.
Asante.
Who's going to bell the cat? He's given some answers already today.
Asante.
Thanks so much for being here this morning. Asante Sana. It's 9 a.m. Good morning.
The latest news from around the world. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.